Yeah, that's right. I said what I said. This is Zhu Yuan, and she's worse than Billy. Certainly not in every way, just two kind of big ones, actually. And yes, my disappointment is indeed immeasurable, but outside of those two things, she's almost perfection. She's got insane burst damage, surprisingly flexible team synergies, a high skill ceiling, but most importantly, tons of combo potential. Zhu Yuan is hands down the most complex character in Zenless Zone Zero at the moment, so, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of players are kind of struggling to figure out how to play her effectively and missing out on some of the fun. So today, I'm here to help. Hi, hello, welcome, call me Casual, and if you haven't noticed, I love cool combos, and while figuring out some of the Zhu Yuans, I uncovered a lot about the intricacies of her kit. There is so much hidden under the surface, and let me tell you, those waters run deep. So in the interest of time, I'm mixing it up a bit today, and I'm gonna try to focus on only the most important information. We're gonna talk about her practical combo routes and how they'll be driven by your ability to react and adapt to the enemy, how to avoid ruining your damage output because it's easier than you might think, and of course, the surprising ways in which she's worse than Billy, a character at the bottom of most tier lists, but also why, despite that, I think she may be a must-have if you're looking for an S rank who won't be power crept within the year, whose full potential may not even be available in-game yet. And finally, we'll wrap up not with a standard point-by-point breakdown of the showcase combo as per usual. Instead, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways, a couple of bullet points laying out what these combos taught me and how those findings can potentially be applied to your own gameplay. So, without further ado, let's get into it, and if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe for weekly combo videos just like this one in ZZZ and beyond. But before we go any further, a brief disclaimer, don't let Silver Wolf bait you. I think Zhu Yuan is a lot of fun, and I know a lot of players are gonna adore her gameplay. But at time of recording, she's only available for a little over a week longer, but by the time you watch this, she may not be around anymore. Just keep in mind, you do not need her. You don't need any particular individual character, and she'll be back in a couple of months anyway, so don't feel pressured to pull if you haven't already, and certainly don't let yourself get FOMO'd into gambling. It's just a bad idea. Personally, I think it's best to somewhat treat these games like a kind of annoying roguelike where you just won't be allowed to unlock everything. So you as a player always want to prioritize who or what really matters to you as an individual as opposed to whatever someone like me has to say about how good a character is. With that being said though, let's get into it. Hi, this is Editor Casual. So I finished this video yesterday, set it to render overnight, and then went to sleep, because the cool thing about editing software nowadays is I can actually have it upload the video to my channel automatically after it's done, and then I can just double check everything afterwards and flip a switch to push it live whenever I'm ready. It's pretty cool. We're living in the future. It's great. At least it is until everything breaks and you wake up to a corrupted project file. So, that intro and a few other isolated snippets are the only things I could safely extract without everything crashing. The rest is gone. I can't recover it. I've spent hours trying, and the backups are having problems too. Otherwise, I would just roll back and redo everything I lost. I don't mind having to retrace my steps. I mean, I still have the footage, I have the script, I have the audio. What I don't have, unfortunately, is time. Especially because this video was already delayed after my home was somewhat unexpectedly turned into a construction site for a few days, and I do have other videos I plan to share with you all this week, and I don't want to derail everything just because this one video has had some hiccups. Plus, to be fair, I know a nearly hour-long combo video is that's a lot of content to ask you to sit through anyway, so I'm just going to take this as a sign that it's time for me to try to be more concise when it comes to conveying the info. So here's what we're going to do instead. I'm not going to go into the same level of obsessive detail when it comes to all the nuances of Zhu Yuan's kit. We're skipping 101 and going straight to the 300 level course, so we're going to be moving a bit quickly because I am out of time. So now... This is a ticking clock scenario. Whatever this video looks like at noon tomorrow is what goes live, and rewriting the script, editing from scratch, can he do it? Or will this be the most scuffed guide you've seen in your entire life? I guess we're about to find out together. So by all means, if you have any questions, which I'm sure some people might, I'm not going to explain everything, please let me know down below and I'll do my best to respond to as many of you as possible. And if you have anything specific you would like me to expand on in a future video, please let me know, because I'd be happy to follow this up when I can find the time. Really, Zhu Yuan is so crazy. I have so much to say about her. The outro of that nearly hour-long video included me talking about how, well, I mean, this isn't everything. This could have been a good 30 minutes longer, actually. So believe me, we have a lot to talk about, and I'm looking forward to circling back at some point. But for now, I'm just going to show you a couple of my go-to combo routes, briefly touch on how to avoid ruining your damage. We'll chat a bit about why Billy can indeed run circles around my girl, and then I'm going to wrap up with a rapid-fire breakdown of some of the pieces of tech I picked up putting this video together, and how they can potentially be applied to your own gameplay. Even the juggling, because I think even those of you who aren't combo obsessed like me can see some real value out of juggling with Zhu Yuan, specifically her actually, and I do want to talk about that. Sound good? Alright, let's get into it. Even though I'm not going to go into the most detail in the world, I do still want to make sure we're all on the same page as much as possible. So here is a brief, TLDR primer. Zhu Yuan is the definition of the best defense is a good offense, because when you're on point, Zhu Yuan is all offense all the time, and she excels at putting the enemy in positions where they can't do anything to stop her. She's a character kind of built around her movement, her burst damage, and resource management, the latter being one of the most important elements, because getting good with Zhu Yuan largely comes down to how effectively are you generating and spending her resources. She effectively has two main stances enabling that. Assault mode, which refers to her basic attack string that helps her generate ammo, and suppressive mode, where she spins said ammo. And that ammo is crucial, because her core passive not only boosts her damage massively whenever she's in suppressive mode, but boosts it even further when the enemy is stunned, so her exclusive resource, shot shells, is key to her damage output. But I'm just going to continue calling shot shells ammo for the clarity, because let's be real, that's what it is. Plus, try saying shot shells stock shelves 5 times fast. It's the basis for a hell of a tongue twister. Anyway, she can hold 9 rounds at a time, and a full suppressive string will see you using all 9 to basically delete stunned enemies. The most basic suppressive mode combo is 2 single shots followed by a burst of 3, expending 5 rounds of ammunition in total, with those last 3 attacks being the most important because, of course, for spending 3 shells, you get 3 shells worth of damage rapidly. Like I mentioned earlier though, ideally when trying to burst an enemy down, you want to use all 9 of her bullets, so your default combo will see you following up that 3-round burst with a directional dodge to your left or right, which will then transition you into one more 3-round burst, expending all of your ammo, which is what you're going to be aiming for in any given stun window. Keep in mind, just because you have to press and hold basic attack to enter suppressive mode, you're always going to have to attack at least once beforehand, so taking that into account, you always want to keep in mind how you're entering suppressive mode, because that can be important. For example, outside of when I'm styling, because it does look cool, I don't use the default neutral basic attack into the backflip option too often because it just takes too long and it doesn't do much for your positioning, but it does also have more iframe, so if you're close range and no one attack is coming, it can be a great option. Otherwise, you'll want to initiate with a dash attack either forward or to either side while holding basic, because that'll allow Zhu Yuan to transition into suppressive a lot quicker and smoother. You'll get similar results by holding basic after an EX special or an ultimate, which is key to keep in mind for fitting as much damage into a stun window as possible, which is really one of your main priorities of Zhu Yuan. Even outside of stun though, those enhanced shots are really one of her biggest sources of damage and ether application. She kind of doesn't do a ton of damage when just using her normals, and even her specials aren't too crazy, so at all times you want to be keeping in mind how you're getting more ammo, and you want to take that into account when going through her combo routes. And thankfully, when it does come to acquisition, Zhu Yuan actually gains ammo from several sources rather quickly. She generates 1 round of ammo from her dodge counter, quick assist, as well as her 4th and 5th attacks and her basic string individually. However, chain attacks, EX specials, and her ultimate all generate 3 rounds each. The easy way I remember it is if she's spending resources like special meteor in exchange for ammo, she gets 3 rounds, but free ammo sources like her basic attack string or a dodge counter only give her 1. Simple, right? Ammo generation is something you're gonna want to keep in mind at all times because it will be a major influencing factor on your combos, because like I said, Zhu Yuan is all about the resource management, and her greatest strength actually is her flexibility as a result of that. She's a very reaction-based character. You're gonna want to shift your combos around based on how many resources you have access to at any given moment, what the enemy is doing, and how close you are to that stun window. The most basic of basics when it comes to the practical combos is, of course, the standard 5-hit basic attack assault mode string, which can be altered with a dodge following basic 1, basic 4, or a basic 5 without interrupting your combo. So if your goal was speed, say you wanted to finish your string as quickly as possible to generate some ammo, your basic combo route could look like this. BA1, directional dodge left to right, BA3, BA4, BA5, followed by another directional dodge to loop back to basic 3 and keep going from there as you wish. As far as I can tell, that's your fastest option if your main goal is to generate ammo quickly without spending any other resources, but the great thing about Zhu Yuan is how flexible her strings can get, especially considering her EX special shares many of the same properties as her dodges, so it can be also incorporated into your strings very easily. And honestly, the rest of her most basic combos come down to adjusting that general framework to suit the situation at hand. You'll want to weave in directional dodges to avoid enemy attacks, as well as stack additional ether to trigger corruption. Very valuable, especially because you're going to be running chaotic metal. Let's be real, everybody is. It's early game, it's the best relic set for her at the moment, I'm pretty sure. Remember to use the EX special for the ammo as well as to avoid multi-hit attacks, since the dodges are kind of bad at it, and the EX special's iframes are beautiful. And really, on that same note, don't get too hyper-fixated on Zhu Yuan's built-in dodges. They kind of aren't, they're not great in a lot of ways, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon, because that is one of the big problems with her kit. But the point is, don't get too focused on them, because more often than not, you'll need to alternate between the dodges that are built into her attack string and a standard dash, because unfortunately, Zhu Yuan can't cancel out of attacks into her unique dodges, so fixating on them can get you knocked out of your combo quite often. But like every other character, a well-timed perfect dash followed by a counterattack is one of her best defensive options. Not to mention, speaking of enemies with multi-hit attack strings, and considering Zhu Yuan gets ammo from her dodge counters, a couple of those back-to-back are a really effective way to get a refill very quickly. In fact, that's part of the reason why in higher-end content with a lot of enemies, or like with a boss that's really on top of you, pressuring you, you almost don't need to worry about your ammo, because if you're dodging often enough, you'll almost always have some wig in the wings. Anyway, I don't know if I would say Zhu Yuan has like a ton of super firm combo routes outside of stun, because the way she plays, you'll constantly be mixing it up, generating ammo in various ways, bouncing around the field. Although, that being said, we will talk about a few more combos in a second, but they're slightly more situational, so we'll have to save those for the tech part of the video. Anyway, when thinking about combos in any practical scenario, I'm almost always focusing on how much ammo I have and how much I need at any given time to get the most out of my stun window, because of course that's where the majority of Zhu Yuan's damage really shines. But if you go into stun without enough ammo, you might find yourself floundering a bit. Don't let the mind goblins get you though and push you into hoarding ammo. You want to spin freely because of how easy it is to get more, and again, suppressive mode is Zhu Yuan's main source of damage. In fact, that last combo I mentioned that I walk you through is a great option for the neutral game, as it generates 5 rounds of ammunition, which is really all you need to know. You'll have enough to safely go into your stun window with a full mag, because in between Zhu Yuan's chain attack and Nicole's quick assist, you'll generate 4 rounds, which with the 5 gets you to 9 for a full suppressive string, no problem. And I am just gonna assume you're running Nicole, because I wouldn't say you're like throwing if you're not, but like if you aren't, I'm assuming you already got your own thing going on anyway. I mean, you must be taking the graduate course, because Nicole and Zhu Yuan are such a match made in heaven. Playing Zhu Yuan without Nicole would feel like running a marathon without shoes. I swear I wrote that before the thing happened. I swear to God. Wow, Mr. Beast. Anyway, I was about to say, yeah, that's doable, absolutely, but Lord knows it's not going to be comfortable anyway. I would like to retract my statement. Running a marathon without shoes is way worse than playing Zhu Yuan without Nicole. But, you know, they do work very well together, so I think you probably do want to run them together. Anyway, moving on. For example, let's say you only have 2 rounds on deck before stunning the boss. As long as you have either an EX special or your ult, you're basically golden, because Zhu Yuan's chain attack will generate 3 rounds, Nicole's quick assist gives you 1, and then if you open your combo with either the special or your ult, you'll generate the remaining 3 rounds, taking you to 9. Here's the thing though, always lead with the EX special over the ult if you gotta pick between the two in my opinion, because A, you don't want to overcap on special energy and you'll gain more throughout the rest of the combo, and B, the ult is fairly quick, so I think it's best placed at the end of a stun window because like most characters, Zhu Yuan's strongest attacks come out at the end of her strings, and you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're losing out on damage because you couldn't finish your combo right before like stun timer expires, right? That being said, here's my go-to combo route for stun. I try to initiate with a black hole where possible just to make sure the defense shred debuff is active the entire time all the chain attacks are going off. It's a normal chain attack sequence from there, being sure to end on Nicole to refresh the debuff and quick assist into Zhu Yuan for the ammo. As soon as she's on field, always dash first either forward or sideways while holding basic attack to enter suppressive. Again, it's faster than the backflip. From there, it's a standard 9-shot suppressive combo, 5 shots followed by a directional dodge while holding down basic attack, which will transition you into 3 more shots, expending your 9 rounds of ammunition. If you do all that fast enough, you'll have plenty of time to spare, so what I like to follow up with is an EX special, then I swap to Nicole as soon as Zhu Yuan is locked into the animation, so she'll finish in the background. I pop off a black hole to refresh the debuff again, quick assist back into Zhu Yuan, and fire off her ult while the debuff is still ticking. Anything that somehow survives all that will also have 7 suppressive shots waiting for them on the other side, and let me tell you, very few enemies can survive that kind of smoke. And keep in mind, those 7 extra shots are generated within seconds, so again, don't be afraid to use that ammo. Just keep an eye on your reserves and get comfortable with all the different ways you can use and attain more ammo, and don't get too pigeonholed on any one playstyle or any single combo rotation. Sometimes you'll wind up triggering stun in an awkward time. You really want to get comfortable being able to quickly check how much ammo you have, where your special meteor is at, and instantly making a decision on how to proceed from there. In my opinion, a lot of the best Zhu Yuan players will smoothly shift in and out of suppressive mode almost constantly, generating and spending ammo while running circles around your enemies, always keeping an eye on stun and making sure you'll have enough resources on deck to get the most out of it. But with all of her movement and so much to keep track of, it's actually really easy to make mistakes that may not seem like mistakes at face value if you weren't paying attention. And if you aren't, you could easily kneecap your damage output. So let's fix that, yeah? So, something I haven't seen a ton of discussion about, likely because the game is still in its infancy, and this only applies to a couple of characters at the moment, but damage fall off is actually a major concern for Zhu Yuan. A lot of her attacks shifts her position on the field drastically. I don't think she has a single attack in her entire kit that doesn't have her like sliding all over the place to an extent. Even her chain attacks often place her some distance away from the enemy, and if my girl is too far away from whatever she's attacking, she'll start doing less damage. Now, bear in mind, this isn't the most scientific approach. You know your boy is allergic to spreadsheets where these games are concerned. Considering Zhu Yuan moves so much and damage numbers fluctuate a bit, it's even harder to nail down a specific distance, which, side note, Hoyo, why don't we have any numbers in the lab? What's up with that? I'm really not out here trying to min-max, but it'd be so much easier to understand things if we just get some, put some data in the game, in the actual game. That'd be cool. I don't know. Anyway, as far as I can tell, around here, roughly 3 to 4 tiles away from the enemy is where your damage starts to pull a Mac and Me. You don't want to be in Mac and Me. It's not a very good film. Aside from the mini High School Musical bit inside of a McDonald's, that was high art. Anyway, you'll constantly find yourself at this distance with enemies, just kind of naturally, right? Especially considering how large maps can be and how mobile the enemies themselves are. So something that's very important to factor into your combos is maintaining her ideal range, but thankfully that's relatively easy to do as long as you're mindful about it. Let's say you're really far away, whether an enemy just spawned in, whether you get disengaged for a sec to avoid a couple big swings, maybe your chain attack sent you to Narnia, whatever the case may be. What I think might be slept on as an option is using Nicole's quick assist to close gaps, because because sprinting is for chumps, and Nicole's black hole travels almost full screen. As long as you're within lock-on range, you're basically golden, and the quick assist will get Zhu Yuan on the field right in front of the enemy in perfect position to transition straight into basic attack 3, an EX special, a dodge, whatever you want to do. And of course, Zhu Yuan's dash attacks are a great option too. You can chain multiple together to close gaps really quickly while also stacking some ether anomaly too. It's a win-win. And don't forget how valuable tools like your special attack can be for movement as well. The directional EX special is great for avoiding attacks, but you also get a free directional dodge out of it, which allows you to do stuff like chain 3 dash attacks together, something you normally can't do without triggering cooldown. Her perfect dodge as well as perfect assist also both transition into attacks designed for closing gaps, so if you see a ranged attack coming, that's a great opportunity to use either of those options to get within range. And this is all especially important when it comes to suppressive mode, because as soon as you stun an enemy, your #1 priority should be making sure you are actually in range first before you start popping off. So again, just holding basic to enter the stance is not ideal, not only because the backflip is slower, but because it doesn't really get you anywhere in terms of like distance with the enemy. So initiate with a side or forward dash attack, it'll be so much easier to make sure you don't lose out on damage. Which is unfortunately a great opportunity to begin discussing a little bit of what makes Zhu Yuan a bit worse than Robopool over here, because it does involve Zhu Yuan's movement and how you control her positioning in relation to the enemy. Last video, I said Zhu Yuan was like Billy, but without the leg weights, right? I would like to apologize. I was an idiot. I was very wrong and very dumb. Zhu Yuan's movement sucks. But before I go any further, I want to be clear. None of what I'm about to discuss necessarily has to do with who has the higher damage numbers or who can clear faster. I know that's a priority for a lot of players, and by all means, if that's you, more power to you, but I don't personally care about those things in 99% of circumstances. I'm purely focused on having fun with the gameplay, and it's a Hoyo game anyways. Damage and difficulty aren't really the biggest factor outside of arbitrary nonsense like Shiyu, which has always felt like a waste of time anyway, because like it's so transparently driven by gambling for characters and stats instead of skill, so like who cares? If we ever get like a properly genuinely combat focused game mode, like if we get a Bloody Palace or something, hint hint, Hoyo, maybe then we'll start talking and caring about damage a little bit more. But for now, it's mainly about the gameplay, and so what I'm about to say does largely come down to personal preference and game feel. And I also want to be clear, I do like Zhu Yuan. I like her a lot. I would not have made an hour-long video if I didn't. I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't. Really, the thing is, Billy has just set such a high bar for what's possible with ranged gunplay in ZZZ that in comparison to him, Zhu Yuan is just a bit of a letdown. You see, what I love about Billy is a level of finesse, the degree of control and flexibility you have at all times in using him, a level of control that I wish I could achieve with Zhu Yuan. If he's like a laser-targeted tactical strike, Zhu Yuan is like a cruise missile with a broken targeting computer. If I could describe high-level Billy play in one word, it would be smooth, whereas Zhu Yuan feels like kind of rooted in a lot of rigidity, which funny enough is apropos for her personality, I guess, but you know, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about gameplay. And I have thought about it a lot, and her movement issues for me come down to 3 things. It's all the restrictions placed on her directional dodges, her ridiculous basic attack 3, and how her kit in general kind of feels somewhat out of step with how ZZZ as a game functions at its core. In terms of the dodges, they're cool, yeah, and they do function as perfect dodges by default without the need for duplicate copies of her, which I love, but even they feel less rewarding in comparison to Billy's because you have so much less direct control over when and how they happen. You're just so limited in your usage by the fact that you can't cancel out of attacks into them, you can't reasonably dodge in all 4 directions at will, and it almost feels like the game punishes you for effective movement by constantly resetting your combos and forcing you into what I think might be my least favorite attack in the entire game, her basic 3. An attack that practically teleports you in front of the nearest enemy and locks you into this really lengthy close combat flurry of punches and kicks, which just feels awful to me. Not because the animation isn't cool, I think it's dope to see like a character that combines like this gun kata playstyle of like ranged attacks and CQC, but for me it really comes down to the length of the animation and how it clashes with a lot of enemy design. As you get deeper into the game, you'll notice a lot of enemies have built-in multi-hit attacks, or they'll swarm you and you'll have a bunch of attacks coming at you from all sides, and if you transition from, let's say, a perfect dodge into her basic 3 follow-up, you're just asking to get hit. And if you try to outmaneuver the enemy with a manual or directional dodge instead of a like basic 3, it resets your combo, and you'll have to steal with basic 3 at some point again anyway. Honestly, Zhu Yuan would just feel so much better if you could just sub a couple of dodges in instead of the basic 3, even if the dodges took longer to execute. Cause like so often you'll just find your character shoved in the enemy's face, like awkwardly, almost begging you to take a straight hit, or you've got to disengage entirely to avoid issues, which feels kind of productive to Zhu Yuan's kind of in-your-face, rush-down-centric playstyle. But to be fair, the awkwardness of all that isn't entirely Zhu Yuan's fault. It wouldn't be half the headache it is if it weren't for the fact that ZZZ's auto-targeting is clown shoes levels of nonsense, and the majority of Zhu Yuan's kit, but especially the basic attack 3, dial all of ZZZ's worst problems in that department up to 11. I can't tell you how many times I've been giving one enemy the business only to find myself teleporting halfway across the room moments later. Or how often I'll stun an enemy, only for the game to decide, instead of allowing me to remain focused on the enemy I had chosen to lock into that I was, planning on taking care of, instead all of my attacks are going to gravitate towards their buddy instead now. That happens a lot, actually. The game will just arbitrarily wrest control away from me, Zhu will pull a 180 and pop a few rounds off at something I was not looking at and had no intention of attacking. If you've been watching the channel, you've probably heard me mention clean inputs here or there. I do pay a lot of attention to that kind of thing, and really, my default is to assume the problem is on my end, that I'm messing up and that I need to improve. I know I'm not the best gamer in the world, so please hear me when I say this. I am 100% confident. Whenever this happens, it's not my fault. This is not me fat-fingering something. This is the game having a stroke. Like, for real, why do we even have a manual lock-on if the game is just gonna override it randomly? Like, honestly, I think that's going to be one of the biggest barriers making combat in the overworld problematic. It's not going to be the input complexity or the general viability. It's going to be constantly fighting the camera whenever there are multiple enemies on screen, because the game just does not know how to deal with that. I really don't know what surprised me more, that Zhu Yuan's movement is like a little bit worse than Billy's to me, or that ZZZ's auto-targeting is somehow worse than Genshin Impact's. Like, that's wild. A lot of that is subjective, though, and I kind of don't know how much of that is my own personal headache and my own personal preferences. And so I would kind of like to know, if you happen to have Zhu Yuan, are you running into the same hiccups? Does that all feel as off-putting and awkward to you as it does me? Let me know down below. I'm really curious. Now, I did mention there were 2 issues, but the other one likely won't be super noticeable for many players, but it does make Zhu Yuan a little bit less generally flexible than Billy, because she isn't hit scan in the same way that he is. And I don't think hit scan is the right word here, but it's the closest I can think of in terms of what I'm trying to maybe it's easier if I just show you what I mean. Tell me, do you notice the difference between these 2 clips? Did you catch it? The way Billy and Nicole work, there are outliers, but the vast majority of their attacks will hit the enemy regardless of where they are, as long as the target is in front of them and vaguely within range. If both of those things are true, your bullets will connect, even if they don't look like they should. Zhu Yuan, on the other hand, very much requires the enemy to be somewhat at the same height as her attacks. There's leeway on either side to an extent, but if the enemy is too high, her bullets are gonna whiff 100% of the time. Now, this is far from the worst problem to have. It does mean there are a decent amount of things, a decent amount of combos that just won't be possible for Zhu Yuan that I was really hoping would be. But at the same time, I would also argue this adds an extra layer of skill that can be a lot of fun to engage with, because you genuinely have to pay attention to your timing a bit more when attacking airborne enemies. I know I've had fun figuring out the timing for things like comboing into a suppressive shot, so I'm certainly not bothered by this like I am by her movements. I find it as fascinating as I do surprising, and I'm glad there's space in the game for characters of the same general type to function in different ways like this. I could see that being an area where the game could kind of easily stagnate long term if there were hard rules in place like every ranged character has to be hit scan. So yeah, this is something I'm definitely going to be keeping in mind and testing around as more ranged units get added to the game. It'll absolutely factor into my future combos, but on that note, let's get into the juicy stuff. All the hidden pieces of combo tech, or, some of them at least, that I picked up making this video that are helping me have so much fun with Zhu Yuan. Like, for example, did you notice she has a built-in launcher? Honestly, launchers are always going to be the first thing I look for in a character's kit, and I was momentarily a bit disappointed when I couldn't find one in Zhu's normals. But, not the biggest deal. Characters are like weapon types, and it's no problem to use Ambi or Piper to initiate a juggle and then pick them up with Zhu afterwards. But, luckily enough, as I'm sure many of you are aware, ranged units in this game don't have traditional parries. Instead, you get an evasive dodge, a bit of witch time, and a unique counterattack, and in Zhu Yuan's case, hers launches enemies. Now, you can go directly into a normal basic attack string, but I've noticed that has an odd tendency to drop enemies out of the juggle. I'm not entirely sure why, it's somewhat inconsistent, but personally, I've found if you launch an enemy this way, and instead of going straight into her basic string, you hit confirm with a side dash attack and then start a fresh string afterwards, you'll sustain the juggle much more comfortably and consistently. But that launcher isn't the only thing she brings to the table. Once she gets an enemy in the air, either with her launcher or another character's, her basic 4 can serve to really effectively relaunch the enemy, tossing them even higher and opening up other combo routes that may not otherwise be possible. And not to mention, if you swap immediately after the kick connects, she'll continue to fire a few bullets in the background, sustaining the extra height just long enough to set up some fancier stuff. Plus, Zhu Yuan may be the easiest character in the game to juggle with, outside of Ambi, because all of her bullets will hold an enemy in the air on impact. So as long as you're within range and you're fast enough, you can juggle an enemy from almost anywhere. You can even juggle out of a chain attack if your timing is on point, and I think this clip is a good example of where I'm coming from and thinking this kind of thing could potentially be valuable for a lot of players long term. Here, in the span of mere seconds, I effectively immobilized every single enemy on the field except one, giving me all the breathing room in the world to do as I pleased. The others could have been peppering me with bullets, interrupting my attacks with their own, but by stunning 2, launching 1, and positioning myself so the other would get grouped more easily and finished off at the same time as the one I was juggling, I effectively put the enemy in a situation where they didn't even get a chance to do a single thing before I cleared the board. And none of this is necessary on any level, but it is fun and it can be useful in small ways if you lean into it. So if you see a mid-air enemy, maybe go for a dash attack and try to get cozy with a couple juggles yourself. Speaking of which, here are a few of my favorite routes for juggling enemies. After a launcher, let's say Ambi's EX special, you can do a couple things. For example, if you launch an enemy and immediately swap into coal, you can catch them on top of the black hole, charged up for the extra duration, you're invulnerable the entire time, so why not, right? And for the majority of enemies that you can launch, this will trigger stun, at which point you can use that as an opportunity to bring in Zhu. She'll get 3 rounds of ammo, her chain attacks AoE will soften, if not outright delete most enemies, and if anything happens to survive, you can easily mop them up with a few suppressive shots, especially since the black hole's defensive shred debuff will remain on field for quite some time. Another one of my favorite routes is triggering stun with Ambi's EX special and then swapping into Zhu as quickly as possible. And then as soon as the animation ends, dash attack right away to catch the enemy with your bullets and go into your preferred attack string from there. The timing on this can be a little tight, but once you get the feel for swapping right away and timing the dash attack, it'll be easy to whip this out whenever you want. I am a man of my word, and as I speak, it's now 11:50ish in the AM on a Thursday morning, and it's time to start rendering. I think I made it pretty far, all things considered. Obviously, this isn't everything there is to know about Zhu Yuan, and I absolutely want to go into more detail down the road, make like a proper guide, but for now, I hope I could still be helpful on some level, all things considered, and if not, I hope you had some fun at least. I know I did. Again, I pose the question to you, the viewer. What would you like to hear more about when it comes to Zhu Yuan, if anything? This isn't a bit for engagement. Lord knows I'm not trying to min-max the channel either. I genuinely want to hear from you. And I feel like I've said this every week, but it's still true, so I'm just going to keep saying it. I'm continually just in shock, feeling beyond grateful for all the love and support on the channel, as new as I am to the community. And in my gratitude, my ongoing promise to you is that as long as you're watching, your boy is always going to be here creating, trying to step this game up and make even more better, entertaining, more informative content every single day. I can't commit to any definitive schedule because I do have a very busy life and this channel is way too new to be all-consuming in the way that it would need to be for that. But we've managed a roughly once a week upload cadence so far, so generally speaking, that's what you can expect around here. So if you like what you see or hear, consider joining the crew and embracing that filthy casual lifestyle. Forget about the min-maxing and the spreadsheets and embrace the fun. It's certainly not the only way to enjoy yourself, but at least in my opinion, with games like this in particular, it is one of the best ones. And in that spirit, I'm never here to dictate how you play. You do you. Play how you want to play. My main goal is always just to share potential avenues to help you find your own path to fun. So by all means, feel free to take from this video what you want and leave what you don't. Cheers, lads and ladies. Thanks again for watching. A special thanks if you made it to the deep end. Let me know down below what your favorite piece of combo tech or, Zhu Yuan information is, because I love hearing everything the community has uncovered. And hopefully I will see you back here sometime very soon. Knock on wood this weekend. Yo, this is how you know this is really last minute, because I almost forgot to mention, literally the most important thing about Zhu Yuan. Really, she's just Jill. She's just Jill from MVC2. They just put Jill in the game. We got X23, we got Storm, now we got Jill. I'm telling you, just put my boy Mags in the game.